Today's conversation is sponsored by Skillshare, a learning platform for creatives. Cultivating daily art habits for self-expression is more important than ever, and I'm personally going the traditional illustration route. As a member, you get access to all of their classes from animation to pottery and more. You can also share your progress and connect with other students. I'm nearly finished with part 1 of the drawing laboratory by Brent Eviston. I've moved on from making abstract shapes to learning how to translate those shapes into an actual discernible subject. I really like Brent's energy. He's calm, he's patient, his classes are perfectly paced. To be honest, I got a little ahead of myself and I started implementing old habits, but I think I found a good middle ground that works for me. My early practice looks like this, and my latest illustration looks like this. I have to say, for somebody who's never previously done the overhand pencil grip, this really isn't bad. The first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. 6 months into my crochet journey, I decided to dabble in pattern making. That was nearly 4 years ago, and since then I've never stopped pattern making, and fiber arts has really changed my life. Today, I want to look back at every single crochet pattern I've ever designed. I want to talk a little bit about them, and I'm going to rank them, so let's get into it. I am going to go from S to D. S is best, D is worst. Now, I think all my patterns are adorable. I love all of them. I also think none of them are perfect, so realistically, I would put all of them in B. But to make this video interesting, it's going to be a comparative scale, so I'm going to use the full spectrum. Let's go in chronological order to the best of my memory, starting with this mushroom trinket dish. And I actually have mine back here. I had just made the realization that I can reverse engineer stuff, so I wanted to challenge myself. I had seen a mushroom trinket dish on Pinterest. It's not my invention. I was like, I can reverse engineer the mushroom. What can I bring to the table? That's why I made the base a lily pad, because I hadn't seen that yet. I had only seen like a circle. This pattern is super easy. The mushroom is just 2 parts of amigurumi and then you attach them with slip stitch. The spots you can embroider. This lily pad is literally just an unclosed circle with a rim. She's cute. Didn't take too long to figure out. I'm gonna put her in B tier. The cat hat. Again, I didn't invent this idea. This hat was viral. It was absolutely everywhere. But I noticed that the hat is literally just a square. It's a square that you put over your head, and because your head is round, the corners of the square turn into cat ears. So in order to make myself useful, I decided to make a pattern for a hat with stripes. That way I can at least teach somebody how to change color. In addition to the hat itself, I also added 3 accessories. So the bow, the star, and the leaf sprout, which is also something that was viral at the time. The star probably took me the longest time to figure out, because at first I thought you had to cast on separately for every single point of the star. You don't. It works in a round. I loved making these because once you have the foundation chain set up, there's little to no thinking after that. You don't have to count, you just have to switch colors after every row. It builds up super nice and easy. This is a great project to work on while you're watching a show, listening to a podcast, chatting with friends. I made so many, and then I kind of got sick of them because they were just all over my house, and I only have one head, so I wasn't wearing all of them. I ended up selling every single one. This did become quite popular on my Etsy, and it boosted my self-esteem a lot, but again, nothing too crazy, so I'm gonna put it in C tier. After that, I really got into pattern making for hats. I loved that hats were so easy to make to measure, because even though everybody's head size is a little bit different, everybody's head is round. So I made this Teemo hat. I wanted to make the Teemo hat because it's a very popular piece of League of Legends merch, but I felt like the official merch just wasn't doing justice how cute it looked on the Teemo splash art. It looked cheap and the colors were wrong and the proportions were wrong. So I wanted to make a version that was actually accurate to the splash art. It's really just a bucket hat, and then the goggles, I mean, these are just rectangles with a border, and then the strip is obviously just a long series of single crochet. Ears are just triangles, and then we have this little tuft. Literally don't have a yarn brush, so I just separated the strands with my fingers. Despite its simplicity, I do think I succeeded in making a better version. I mean, the right version is just so bad, I'm sorry. And all my friends who played League approved of this hat, so great success. I got some really sweet reviews from people who bought the pattern and they made it for a loved one who played League of Legends, and that really warms my heart. I love reading reviews. It's probably the best part of pattern making. I am gonna put this in A tier. The fuzzy Ushanka. No, it's nice. It's so nice. I don't think it looks bad. There's not much going on. When you use teddy yarn or faux fur yarn, the challenge is not building up the project, because it builds up so fast. The challenge is actually finding the stitch in which you have to insert your hook because it's so fuzzy you can't see the stitches. But that also means that it's pretty much impossible to make a faux fur yarn project look bad because you can't see mistakes if you can't see stitches at all. So getting this hat to take shape was really easy. I mean, it builds up very fast. There's very little ways in which you can mess this project up. I think I made the project and I wrote it within like 1 week because at that point I just felt an obligation to write a pattern for everything that I freehand. Like everything that I wasn't following a pre-existing pattern or tutorial for, I felt the need to make my own. I don't regret making it, I'm not obsessed with it. The hat itself, it's also no longer my style, so I don't wear mine anymore. I'm gonna put this in D tier. The Devil Horn Docker Beanie. I adore this hat so much. It's probably one of my favorite projects of mine and definitely my favorite hat pattern. It's really fun to make. I made multiple. I made one for my mom. I really love the ribbing detail. I think that's something that was missing from my cat hat pattern. Like if I were to do that one again, I would also make this brim with ribbing. It's completely made to measure the length, the width, even the size of the horns. I wear mine all of the time. It performed really well on Etsy. Again, I got some really cute reviews. Honestly, no notes. S tier. My skull granny square. This one took a lot of tries to get the skull right. This is my first granny square pattern. I spent a long time experimenting with where I should start the skull. I think I ended up starting here, so actually this part of the nostril is the foundation chain. That ended up working really well. I am really proud that I was actually able to get it to resemble a skull instead of like a turnip or something. I have had failed granny square projects because I just couldn't get the middle shape right. I think the fact that the eye sockets and the nose are hollow really helps sell it. And I think it also helps that crochet stitches on their own kind of already look like teeth. I really love that. I love when the medium of a project synergizes with its intended appearance. The most fun part was probably crocheting this inner square because I liked the challenge of like both working around the skull whilst also ending with a square border on the outside. I would give this one an S if it weren't for the fact that actually it's asymmetrical. So there is one less stitch on this side than on this side. The way it was turning out, I had to choose between either making it asymmetrical or doing a decrease on the final round so that the square actually ends with the same amount of stitches on each round. So I decided to make it asymmetrical. That actually raises a lot of questions. I get emails from time to time from people saying like, hey, I think you have a mistake in your pattern, and I have to be like, no, it's intended. Nevertheless, this is my best selling pattern. I get the most sales on it. I absolutely love seeing what people make out of the squares and also the color schemes they choose. The asymmetry actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise because I can recognize when somebody made a skull granny square using my pattern, because obviously there's so many patterns for skull granny squares out there. I actually saw a photo of a skull granny square on Pinterest and I was like, oh, that's cute, it looks like mine. And upon closer inspection, I saw the missing stitch on one side and I was like, that is mine. So my design ended up on Pinterest, which is so cool. There's another reason why she's going in A tier, but I'll tell you guys about that in a bit. Rice ball / onigiri. So let me expose myself real quick. The listing for these that you see on Etsy is my second time launching these because the first time it was a total flop. I think it's because the photography was subpar, to say the least. So I made the first pattern a long time ago and I actually made it shortly after making my Timo helmet, and here's why. I was making the ears and I don't know, I think I was just hungry while doing it, but I was looking at this and I was like, that looks like an onigiri. I should do something with that. So I took the instructions for the Timo ears and then I built onto that in order to make this. I obviously am not able to sell this at very high because it's not a super big or complex pattern, so I tried to lean into that for marketing. So that's why I'm like, hey, it's a 99-cent pattern that you can make in less than an hour. I tried to make that its selling point. Now believe it or not, this pattern took the most prototyping out of all of my patterns, even though it's literally Since amigurumi is not perfectly round, right? It builds up in a spiral. The end point of each round is a little bit past the end point of the previous one. For that reason, getting the decreases to line up was so difficult, and by the time I finally had it figured out, I had 12 of these sitting in my house. I managed to give most away to my friends. I still have a couple. These ones have faces because my original pattern had also instructions for a face, but I decided to remove that. To this day, I don't think the profits I've made from this pattern even cover the material costs of the sheer amount of these that I had to make. I still think it's cute as hell. It's great as a keychain or bag charm, but she is going in D tier. Pokeball Granny Square. This is another one of those patterns that take a lot of work to figure out, but the final product does not reflect that. I stuck with the same dimensions as the Skull Granny Square because I just want that consistency across all my Granny Square patterns. I only have the two at the moment. For the outline of the Pokeball, I tried to make it single crochet rows at first, but then it was way too many increases and then it became difficult to keep it within the bounds of the same amount of stitches as the Skull Granny Square, so that's why I ended up doing surface crochet. I'm not super fond of this one. Actually, the reason why I had the idea is because my sister used to be a Pokemon fan, not me. The response to this one was okay. It's interesting because it seems like the patterns that I'm most passionate about are also the ones that perform the best, and because of that correlation, I'm actually able to predict my income based on like what pattern I'm working on that month. So I'm gonna put this one in C tier. Skull Granny Square, but diagonal. This pattern is the second reason why my original Skull Granny Square goes in A tier, because this one belongs in S, so I'm gonna put it there already. I realized that a problem with these granny squares where it's an image facing one direction is that if you want to make a project where the squares are on the diagonal, now the skull is tilted and not everybody wants that, which limits what you can make with this granny square. So I wanted to make a version where the square is on the diagonal, and of course with the same dimension so that you can mix and match. So I took the same skull, all I did was change the third round, and at this point I was pretty good at like changing any shape into a square, so this took me literally a day. It does have the same asymmetry as the original skull. I wanted to keep that in. This one was so much fun and you guys were so pumped about it, so I'm very, very happy. I also have charts for both Skull Granny Squares on my Etsy. Honestly, I'm just gonna put them here. Go ahead and screenshot. You can have them for free. I love you guys. The piano scarf. You guys saw my vlog for this one. It was a very sentimental project for me. I made it for my partner because he's such a talented piano player. Right now we have like this crappy e-piano and he really wants a real one. Until then, I just wanted to make something that would bring him the joy that an e-piano cannot. I was in sort of a transitional phase. I decided to quit my job while I was making this, and then shortly after its completion, I went abroad to Korea. I wanted it to resemble a piano as best as possible whilst being practical to make. In the end, I settled for a design where the keys are slightly thinner than actual piano keys, but I think it was a worthy sacrifice because the sequencing for the keys is quite nice to repeat. I actually messed up a lot making the scarf. Some keys were longer than others, and then sometimes the octaves weren't in the correct sequence. It's a very easy project to like kind of get into a flow and then you stop counting. So when I made the pattern in the tutorial, I tried to make it in a way that was both clear but in a way that's gonna engage the reader so that they know how to count and how to identify where they are and what's next. I do love this project a lot. I think it's beautiful. I was also inspired by the viral piano skirt that was all over Pinterest. This one is very close to my heart. I'm gonna put it in A tier. The Totoro hoodie. You guys know where this is gonna go, so I'm gonna place her there already. I held off on this project because I wanted to wait until I hit 10,000 subscribers so that this would be like a celebration of hitting 10,000 subscribers. It just so coincided with my Korea trip, so I worked on it all throughout my vacation. This is my biggest project ever. I spent a fat buck on the yarn, and then my initial purchase of yarn was not enough, so I spent another fat buck. This was my first time making a wearable item that isn't a hat, so I had to do sizing for the first time. I didn't know where to start, so I bought a bunch of different size hoodies from H&M. I took them home, I traced them down, and then I returned them, and then I took the trace template with me to Korea. I really loved every single challenge thrown my way. I mean, the color changing, the sizing, all the sleeve prototypes that you see me do in my vlog, the ears, Okay, actually, I didn't like doing the ears that much. And all the while, I was spending time with my family and discovering new places. It was Till's first time in China, and he met all of my extended family. So this hoodie holds so many memories, so much love. I feel so much happiness when I wear it and when I see it in my closet. I wore it while filming a few of my videos, and so many of the comments were like, hey, off topic, but I love your hoodie. Where did you get it? Did you make it yourself? Like, yes, I made it myself. And I finished the hoodie shortly after arriving home from my vacation, so it marked the end of summer and the start of fall. And then throughout fall, I had this pattern tested, and that was also such a wonderful experience because my testers were absolutely amazing. To this day, I still keep in touch with them. They spotted a lot of errors and room for improvement, so I really have them to thank for how amazing this pattern is. And naturally, it exploded on Etsy, so again, thank you guys so much for all the love on this pattern. It's just, I mean, to me, it really represents exactly what crochet is all about. Next up is the bat poncho. I saw someone on Pinterest wearing a knitted cape with like pointy ends, and I felt something shift in my brain. Like I needed to make something like that, especially because it was fall. So I was like, oh my god, this can be like a Halloween pattern. At this point, my Totoro hoodie was still being tested. The original plan was sort of like a vampire cloak with a closure in the front, but I felt like that was like too gothic for like the cutesiness of the ears. I feel like that would clash. And I was heavily inspired by this rabbit lovey that Till crocheted, so I ended up doing the same, like skipping stitches and making chain spaces in order to do that zigzag that also increases by the round. So for the Totoro hoodie, it had a pointed hood. For this one, I wanted to make it rounded because I felt like that point would clash with the ears, and I really like that because it actually curves around my head. The ears were, again, the hardest part. I really dislike doing ears for some reason. My first idea was amigurumi, kind of similar to how I did the Totoro ears, and then I actually still have my second prototype, and this is just like worked back and forth, and that didn't really work out either. And then eventually I settled with this technique where you make a foundation chain and then you work back and forth on both sides of the foundation chain to build it up, kind of like how you build up bra cups. That ended up working, and I actually got the bottom part to curve so that it's actually like fitted against your head. And since the construction is basically a made to measure, I mean, you can make it as long as you want. I had two sizes that are based on your head size, so as long as the collar fits over the head, the poncho is going to fit you because the hood is also made to measure. I tried this new formatting where I had two columns, one for each size. And I also wrote in a few mathematical formulas because I know some people are like really technical and they prefer the numbers over just like explaining it. I think that did make the pattern look kind of scary when you just skim through it, but it did seem like some people benefited from it and made good use of it. I think she's super cute. It's super comfy to just wear around the house. I'm gonna put this one in B tier. Last but definitely not least, the Totoro vest. So while I was making the Totoro hoodie, it was in Korea, it was summer, I was overheating every single day, and I was thinking, what if I made a cooler version of this pattern? And it would be more ideal for certain people who live in like hotter climates, or if they're just looking for something cheaper and simpler but they still want like a Totoro. So I had already finished the front and back panels at that time, so I just seamed them together. I added like some ribbing for the armholes and the collar. We quickly took some pictures, and I wanted to be able to take that apart. I didn't weave in any of that, so actually for the promo pictures we just kept like hiding the loose tails into the project so they wouldn't show. I was thinking about budget, and it just wasn't plausible to purchase like 2/3 of the yarn that I would need for the Totoro hoodie, and that's why I just used pieces of the Totoro hoodie while I was making it. The photos for this listing are a prototype, and I've made changes since based on the feedback I got from the Totoro hoodie testing. The design itself is the same, I just made modifications for the armholes and the collar, and that way you can layer it with like a dress shirt underneath in the way that you usually do when wearing a vest. This pattern is currently a fundraiser. All the proceeds since its upload up until the end of March are going to be donated to Impact Fund, so if you're thinking of buying this pattern, now is a good time. Dare I say, I love this vest more than I love the Totoro hoodie. That's simply because I think it makes more sense to crochet a vest than to crochet a hoodie. It just makes more sense with crochet as a medium. I love both the hoodie and the vest, so both are staying in S tier. So those are all my patterns so far. I'm so proud of this collection. I'm so proud that I can call it mine. All of these are available on my Etsy, and I will be hosting a raffle where I'm giving away pattern bundles soon so that I can raise funds for vet bills for my rescue animals. And I can't wait to make more patterns this year. If you guys have any suggestions for what I should make, or if you guys want me to test your patterns, please do contact me. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you very, very soon.